Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and thanks for downloading Beyond the Balls. You're listening to our 11th episode. Beyond the Balls is a co-production between Women's Sport Australia and Wisp Sports. We are your hosts, Ella Smith and Georgina Mallon, here to discuss all the topics on women's sport off the pitch. Hey Ella, how are you?
I am good. It's another good morning here. I'm really excited for our interview today.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. We've got Belle Brockhoff on the show. So she's the Australian snowboarder. Yeah, super exciting.
That's right. So today we welcome Belle Brockhoff to the show. She's the Australia's best female snowboard cross athlete. Belle is a 2-time Olympian and 12-time World Cup medalist. That's 4 of which she's won gold at. In 2020, she won the Outstanding Achievement Award at the Snow Australia Awards for her amazing comeback over the 2019 to 2020 season, following a pretty hectic ACL recovery. Belle is also an advocate for mental health and is a community custodian for Lifeline Australia. Belle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Belle, you come from a big snow sports family and you first started skiing when you were 3, if I've got that right. Was competitive snowboarding and the Winter Olympics always your goal?
I started snowboarding when I was 10, so it was quite a few more years until I picked up a snowboard from skiing. But as a skier, I was going first chairlift in the morning until the very last one, just before dinner time. So I was a mad skier, and then my mum got a snowboard when I was 9 years old, and I got really jealous. So I made a deal with her, and she said, get to the top level in ski school, which is level 1 black kangaroos, and I'll get you a snowboard the next year. So that's exactly what I did. And the first day I said to my mum, I'm going to go to the Olympics. I don't know what discipline it's going to be in, but it's going to be in snowboarding. And I'm going to go. She believed me. So, yeah, I just haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, so throughout your teens, you competed across a bunch of ski and snowboarding events before you decided on snowboard cross. What was it about this event that led you to pursue it?
I really enjoy going really fast, racing my mates down the hill. And that's what border cross is. Like it's basically an obstacle course. You go down, you go over jumps, rollers, turns. You're tucking in behind people to get faster. So it's really exciting, really exciting sport. But I actually did it until I was about 13 and then decided to focus on a different discipline called Alpine GS, which is like the foundation of snowboarding. And I did that until I was 19 years old. And when I was 19 years old, because there's no funding in that discipline, my mum gave me an ultimatum and said, hey, it's a very expensive sport. If you don't get the funding by the end of the year, we're going to tell you to quit. So that kind of put the pressure on me, and I switched disciplines, trained hard with that and got the funding, and yeah, now I'm here.
So with border cross, is it a because there are so many great Australian athletes who are border cross athletes, is that a better way to go because there's more funding? Is that right?
Yeah, like there's other sport. It depends on what the Olympic Winter Institute has programs for. So border cross is one of the biggest ones for snowboarding, and there are other disciplines like half pipe and slopestyle. The thing with those sports is that they've got really big sponsors that are quite interested in that discipline. So OWIA have pro contracts, which is a little bit less than a program contract, because those guys, when you become really good, you can make enough to cover all your expenses and make an income. So you don't actually need program funding, which is why border cross is highly funded by the OWIA.
Oh, okay, great. So like you said, you decided on snowboard cross. In your first season in the World Cup circuit, you made history as the first Australian woman to win a border cross World Cup medal. How significant was that for you, especially it being your first World Cup season?
A little bit unexpected, but and I did get lucky in the last heat, which was the podium round. So it was positions 1 to 4, and the girl who was in third place fell just before the finish line, and I passed her. So that's just part of the sport. You got a bit of element of luck, and whoever makes the least amount of mistakes will win the World Cup, basically. But yeah, it's it was a good step in the right direction, and there was one other female in the sport before I was, and I wanted to be the first one to get on the podium, and then eventually help the rest of the athletes who are coming through the sport, especially females, show that you can do it coming from Australia, not just a European country.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have made history a few times since then. In 2016, you were the first Australian woman to win a World Cup gold medal. And that was also the first time that both the men and women's division was won by Australia. That was, of course, the men division was, of course, won by Alex Jumpy Pullen, who tragically passed away earlier this year. I rewatched the footage from that day when you came down the slope, and you guys shared the biggest hug, and you just seemed to be so in awe of what you'd achieved. Excuse me. What was that moment like?
Pretty emotional. Like, when I crossed the line, I collapsed down on my knees and started crying. And then I had to get up and out of the finishing area to watch Chumpy come down. And, he had a rough season. He wasn't getting the results that he wanted. I know he's highly competitive and wants, to be the best that he can be throughout the season. And he wasn't gaining those results that he wanted. So, it was the last World Cup of the season, the World Cup finals, and we just put everything on the line, I guess. We just wanted to have fun, and when that happens, good things happen. So, yeah, we were able to share that moment together, and it was really special, and it was Australia's first, and not many teams on tour have been able to achieve that either. So we were stoked. I'm very grateful that I could share that moment with him.
Yeah, so Belle, there's been so many really good Australian snowboarders, especially in recent years. Despite Australia not being renowned for its snowy regions, how do you explain the popularity around competitive snowboarding?
So we would come back from the tour and then train in the gym for a couple of months, and then would get back on snow and work on our skills. So we have that 2 to 3 months on snow that other teams don't get, and we're working closely with the resorts here, and they're providing more and more what we need to become the very best, which is unreal. And we have an amazing coach. He trains really smart, and he has a lot of experience, a lot of medals that he's Olympic and World Cup and World Champs that he's achieved. So really, really lucky as a team.
Yeah, so Belle, your first Olympic Games was Sochi 2014, where you placed 8th. In the lead up to Sochi, there was a lot of attention on Russia's anti-LGBTQ laws and how these really discriminatory laws could affect competitors at the Olympics. You publicly came out as gay in 2013 to protest these laws, and then there was a lot of concern about your safety when you did go to Sochi. Can you speak to us about this time and how you felt going to Russia?
Yeah, so I am all for equality. Always have been. Especially in sports, it's the cool thing about sport is that it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. If you train hard, results will come. Like, sport doesn't discriminate, and that's what I believed in and wanted to voice. I was 21, and now that I look back, I wish I did more research into the country and understand their culture a bit more, educate myself, and that's one thing that I would have change rather than meeting fist with fist. But going to the country, I wasn't really worried about my safety at all. It wasn't a time where I felt unsafe, And yeah, I had to be mindful that, I was an athlete being invited to the country to compete at the biggest event in the world, and I had to be somewhat respectful as well. But then I made some time to actually go out and meet some Russians, some LGBTQ Russians, and hear their stories. And that was amazing. And people who weren't part of that community, I actually talked to them about it, and they were pretty cool about it. So the laws didn't really reflect a lot of the people's views.
Yeah, so Belle, you were a part of the Principle 6 campaign, which was inspired by the Olympic Charter as a way for athletes, fans and supporters to celebrate the Olympic principles of non-discrimination and call for an end to Russia's anti-gay laws. Can you tell us about what it involved and how you participated in that while you were in Russia?
Yeah, so it was a campaign just spreading awareness around the laws leading up to the games, because Olympic Games, like, it's a huge platform, and you get to reach people who you'd never reach at any World Cup or competition in snowboarding. And it was a good time to kind of voice those concerns. And it's really tricky too, because it's a competition, and they, in history and even now, they don't really want people to, I guess, protest or voice their concerns over political issues around the world. So you can be quite torn. But, for me, it was, voicing that this is my stance on it, and this is what I'd like to change, and this is why. And it's just, just repeating that and just trying to find ways that you can teach people that sport doesn't discriminate. So yeah, and then a few other things that I did was just, doing hand signs when I was taking photos of the games, and just talking about it, really.
Yeah, I saw a lot about that, holding up the 6 fingers to represent the Principle 6 and the whole campaign. Now, aside from, that was obviously such a big part of the games, but how was it competing at your first Olympic Games in Sochi?
Yeah, it was cool. It was really overwhelming. I had no expectation on what it would be like coming in, and the amount of media and a lot of distractions there as well. But it was unreal. The course was amazing. It was a really fun, big course that really challenged you as a rider. And usually at these events, they're bigger courses than normal. So you get a little bit scared sometimes, but it's actually quite fun. It's part of the adrenaline. But yeah, it was always cool. I was standing at the top of the gates, and I could hear the crowd roaring, which was pretty crazy. I've never had that before. And then you'd come down, finish your run, and walk through the media corral. So yeah, it was cool to kind of display my sport to the world and get my first Olympics out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the lead up to Pyeongchang 2018, the 2018 Olympics, you ruptured your ACL twice in 2017, the second time, which was only days before the Olympics began. Remarkably, this did not stop you from competing in the games, where you finished 11th. What was your mindset throughout the games despite having this injury?
Pretty basic. I was like, just pretty an Australian way, just give it a red hot go, because it's 4 years. Every Olympic cycle's 4 years, and some people train their whole lives and don't get a chance to go. And I had qualified for the games, and I had to also prove to the team and the Olympic team that I could actually compete. So I went to Feldberg, which is a resort in Germany, and I competed at the World Cup there just before Olympic Games to say, hey, look, I can move. I can get down a course. Problem was that the course was very small, and the Olympic Games course was very big. So when to backtrack a bit, I did my ACL in the World Champs race course in 2017 in March. And at that point I had a really good season. I was the favourite to win, so really excited, had a lot of expectations on what I wanted to achieve there. And unfortunately things went south because I let fear get inside my head and I made the wrong decision. So that was that. And I had to come home, and that day I started prehabbing for the surgery because I knew that the Olympics was 11 months away. I came home, waited for the swelling to come down, and then I had to do my surgery and do a very intense rehab and get back on snow within 4 months, and then continue my rehab until the first World Cup in December. Unfortunately, in December, I did my ACL again, and it wasn't because I wasn't ready. I felt very strong, and I'd been riding the track all day and felt really good. It's just on the time trial day, the clouds came in, the fog was really thick. It started snowing, so it was very hard to see. And usually when that happens, we put dye on the course, which is like a fluorescent blue liquid. So you can get like your depth of field. When you don't have that, you actually can't see any features. It's just a big whiteout. And you can get vertigo at times when it's really bad. So I feel that I should have voiced my concerns about the course, and I feel that the rest of the girls should have voiced their concerns over the conditions of the course. But we decided to go anyway. And 4 of us dropped. I was next in line. I went down, mistimed a feature, landed, hyperextended my knee, and did my ACL again. And at that point, I knew that I tore my ACL. So I was carried off in what we call a bloodbath, which is a sled that they put you into and they drag you down, which isn't really fun because you can't see where you're going. You're just lying down on this sled. And then a few other people actually crushed an ankle and it broke a few other things. So it wasn't just me. I just got really unlucky. And then soon after, they actually cancelled the time trials and moved it to the next day because it's too dangerous. So from there, I started rehabbing again because I had 2 months to get back on my board and I had to make a decision whether I'd compete or not. And going back to what I said before, Olympics is every 4 years and sometimes people don't get that opportunity to compete. And I knew that I would regret it. So came home, I had to inject myself with blood thinners, which I've never ever done before. I've never injected myself with anything. And I was so scared of putting the needle in because you need to inject yourself with it because they're worried about blood clots when you're flying. So I had to inject myself, and before I left for the airport, my physio was teaching me on how to do it. And I realized why the needle's so fat and short is because dickheads like me end up stabbing myself 3 times in the legs because I'm panicking to put it in and ended up getting all these bruises on my leg. So I finally got it in, came home, did the surgery, did intense rehab without my ACL, and just gave it a red hot go getting back to the games. And yeah, I mean, was a lot of rehab, but that's basically summing it up.
Yeah, that's just the thought of you just being so hard for you. ACL injuries can really end athletes' careers depending on how old they are and how badly they've injured themselves. Obviously, you were still quite young when you did this, but you did face a long rehab after Pyeongchang, as you mentioned. How did you deal with it?
I was pretty over it. Like, I was so sick. I ended up wanting to quit, not because I didn't love the sport anymore, but because the rehab was so shit. It was so boring, so dry. You're literally teaching yourself how to walk again. But for me, that was the second time in a row. And I was like, you're kidding. Like, this is going to take forever. And it's 2 years. It's 2 years until you properly come back. It's not 12 months. Things start to pick up at 18 months, and by 2 years you're pretty sweet. But then even then, like, I still have like niggles here and there, like my knee still cracks every time I squat, and I had cartilage damage as well. So if I knuckle a feature, which is basically coming short of the landing of a jump, my bone hits bone because of the cartilage that's chipped off. I can feel it. It's not really pleasant. So that's just stuff I'm going to have to manage for the rest of my life, and that's fine. And I just have to become smarter on how I do things. But the rehab, yeah, it was, no one really tells you that. They're like, oh, it's you know, just do the rehab, you'll be fine. FYI, it's really and boring. But you just have to get it done. You just do. If you really want to come back, and it does kind of put people in a place on how much they really want it. You just have to do the work, and plus extras, you know. Like for me, I hired a footy coach, Barry Mitchell, and did training with him because I want to get that extra edge. And footy training's great for that. You know, you're going side to side, you've got uncontrollables with the ball, you have to jump, you have to catch, you have to kick, you have to run, change different directions. And that helped my knee quite a bit in the lead up to the last season. And I also did boxing as well, just for that, I guess, putting my whole body under fatigue and then reacting. So a lot of stuff, but, you know, I'm here.
Yeah, so Belle, you were recently awarded Snow Australia's Outstanding Achievement Award for your inspiring comeback to the sport, achieving 5 podium finishes from 6 World Cup starts in the 2019 to 2020 season. What was that moment like, receiving such a prestigious award after all your hard work and dedication?
I was pretty unexpected because, like, I didn't realise that they had that award sort of lined up. You know, it was like Athlete of the Year, Junior Athlete of the Year. And I know I've been nominated for Athlete of the Year, but I looked at, like, you know, results that Scotty James and Laura Peel, who had achieved, you know, world number 1, which is, you know, really hard to get. So I'm like, oh, you know, they've got it. You know, Scotty James has won 12 major competitions in a row, which is like unheard of. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm just coming back, you know, pretty cruisy. But yeah, it just popped up. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it's just nice that, you know, they acknowledge the journey I've been on, and hopefully that inspires other athletes who are coming back from an injury.
Yeah, Belle, you're a Lifeline Community Custodian and have been a really influential voice in the sporting world on discussions about mental health. You've spoken publicly and really openly about your struggles with depression as a teenager, and I can only really imagine how hard it would be to speak about such personal issues in like a really public domain. What motivated you to start speaking out about this?
So my parents have always told me to help others where you can, and they do stuff with like they donate every year to different charities. Like they have a budget for it and whatnot, and they've always brought me up to look after other people and do what you can to do good in the world. So when I went through depression and when it got really severe when I was in my later teens, when I came out of that, I wanted to do something about it. So I started researching and found out that, you know, there's Beyond Blue, there's Lifeline, there's all these different organisations that provide information and support people who are struggling. So I thought that was pretty amazing, and I wanted to be a part of that because I didn't want people to feel what I felt. Or if they do, I wanted to make sure that they felt supported, because I had support from my family, and that was incredible. And yeah, so I decided to reach out to them, and, you know, I wanted to share my story through their platforms and go to different communities and share my story, just to make sure that, you know, even if I save one life or make someone feel, oh my God, like there's support out there, then I've done my job. So yeah, it's something that's really close to heart, and I've been doing it since 2014.
Yeah, so Belle, what sorts of work do you do for Lifeline?
So right now, I mean, it's so tricky with COVID right now. So earlier on, I did myself and Mon Murphy, who are part of the Lifeline Custodians, we decided to do online episodes. So it was every week and a half, we put on a live episode on Instagram, and we just kind of check in with everyone and share ways on how we manage our struggles. And, you know, it wasn't just about that. It was some things like learning how to cook pesto pasta, or, you know, just how to improve your running techniques, just different things that just to get people connected rather than kind of closing themselves off from everyone, especially during COVID. Like, a lot of things aren't normal. And then by that, we just talk about Lifeline and what they could provide. So that's what we did this year. And we've had different athletes on, which has been unreal. And, we've had different companies support that as well as, Lifeline and AIS. But that's all we could do this year. Last year, we were able to, fly to Tasmania and get involved with a Out of the Shadows walk, which is, walking with people who have been affected by suicide, depression, who are going through those things or have been touched by those things, and showing that there is support and sharing our stories as well. So I'm hoping that, once COVID dies down, we are able to go to different communities who may not know that there are resources out there.
Yeah, definitely. So what impact would you say snowboarding has had on your mental health?
I'd say that it's brought me right out of my depression, anxiety. It was it gives me a lot of peace. It puts me in a space where I can be incredibly present and in tune in what I'm feeling now. Every time I'd go snowboarding, I was able to just put emotions aside and just focus in, the present. And it gave me structure to my life, like the training routine, things to work on. It kept me occupied in that way, and things to strive for. It gave me purpose. And that was a big thing for me. And that's something that I share with other people, make sure that you have structure in your life, try and plan things. And if you don't have something that you want to work, you don't know what to work towards, let's try and find it. There's like career counsellors out there. There's different resources that you can access more than ever right now, at your fingertips. So yeah, that's what I'd say. It's just given me structure. And from that, it's just given me a lot of peace.
Belle, when I was researching for this interview, I read through dozens of articles, and what I kept noticing was how often the word brave was used to describe you, whether it was in relation to your protest before Sochi or competing with your ruptured ACL and your recovery from that, and also your openness about mental health. I mean, I would say snowboard cross full stop is a brave thing, but this is such a common word that was used to describe you. How do you deal with this label of bravery?
I don't know. I don't really notice that was much of a label. I'm just, trying to be the best person I can be. And, like I said, I enjoy helping people. If that means I share stories that may seem, that might look like it puts me in a vulnerable position, then I will. Because I'm a strong believer in trying to set up this world better for the next generation. And I feel like that's everyone's responsibility, whether they like it or not. Because, I don't think we're progressing if we're, the next generation comes around and we've gone backwards, whether that's mental health, environment, equality, any topic. So that's how I see it. I don't see it as bravery, like I'm doing something that I love. I've got a roof over my head. I'm able to voice my opinions. We live in this free country, which is amazing. So, that's being I guess privileged, but it's just taking the time and, an opportunity to give back and doing some good in this world, because there's a lot of shit that's going on.
Now, at the start of the interview, you did mention about how you did want to forge a path for women in border cross. How do you see border cross after your involvement and after other athletes' involvement as something that more young women can pursue now?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be border. It could be any sport. But border cross, I want to show that, a girl can do it globally, and competitively and consistently. And I basically want to set up the next generation. So the next female that comes through does better than what I've done. Like I want them to come in. By the time I'm leaving the sport, I want them to beat me. Like, that's the goal. And I've said it to a couple of athletes and they were really confused. Like, shouldn't you be focusing on you? I'm like, yeah, but like, I want to set up this world better than what I have it now. So, I've got a couple of athletes, girls who are coming through and they're keen. They're asking all these questions and they get behind my tail of my board when I'm racing down because they want to pick up more speed and they want to learn. So it's cool to see that there is that, I guess, what's the word for it? No, it's not being keen. I guess they're just excited and motivated to learn as much as possible, which is awesome. Whenever they ask me questions, I'll tell them as is. I won't hide information. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on to Beyond the Balls and speaking to us, Belle. Your story is incredible and really inspiring. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was such an interesting conversation with an Australian snowboarding legend. Head over to wissports.com to find the show notes. Follow Belle on Twitter and Instagram at Belle Brockhoff. Find Wissports is at Wissports on all socials. And you can find Women's Sport Australia at Women's Sports on all socials. Or if you prefer email over social media, the email is info@wissports.com. Thanks for listening to the show. We've spoken to some amazing sportswomen and we are so grateful for their time. We'll be back in another 2 weeks with another fantastic guest.